Hi, welcome. In this video, I want to take a few minutes to respond by way, again, a very popular social media dog trainer goes by the name of Emily Larkin. Her social media name is Kiko Pup. And I've done a couple of videos related to her approach on my YouTube channel a while back, one related to calming signals. And I would encourage you to check that out in terms of what the body language of the dog represents in terms of proper context. This whole issue about control, about relationship, and the position it puts dog owners in when they take this permissive, weak path when it comes to jumping into a relationship problem with their dog. Now, here in this video here, which kind of popped up on my feed, so I found the title interesting, based again on various themes I talk about, especially here when you read here it says about get started. Okay, so and again, this really kind of segues into the whole issue of what represents training, or what represents a process based on a relationship problem. So again, when I talk about relationship problem, understand this is the missing piece, so to speak, when it comes to why it is that so many dog owners experience a counterfeit picture change with their dog within the framework of superficial responses. And this goes into this whole next part of the title is luring with food. Okay, and so again, the question is, well, using food to generate or to motivate a dog to respond, what does that represent in terms of this whole issue about bribery? Again, I talk about issue of bribery. When does bribery become bribery? Okay, using food, using motivating agents. Well, it becomes bribery, and when you again ignore what training represents in the first place in terms of getting started when it comes to dealing with a relationship problem. Okay, so how you want to see this is no different. Again, I keep talking about the parent example. Once a child becomes selfish, it changes everything. Okay, in terms of your defining your role as a parent, in terms of how you're, interacting with. There's that word. Okay, interacting with your child. In terms of again of dealing with a relationship problem, advocating as a parent, your role, and then again, this goes in this whole issue about I talk about control and influence. It's like parental influence. Okay, how is that defined? Well, within the parameters of the relationship, within the parameters of parental role, as you're interacting with your child in terms of structure, boundaries, rules, expectations, demand. Okay, and so all those themes at the social level, okay, they parallel dogs as social animals. Okay, depth of relationship. Understand it's very much the same, and even in terms of outcomes. So when I talk about outcomes and this whole issue about a counterfeit picture, think about, okay, consider a parent who doesn't connect dots, okay, in terms of dealing with the relationship problem, doesn't consider their role the right way, but simply, decides to turn a relationship problem into a learning-based exercise. And when I say that, it means in terms of superficial response, and with the selfish child, just simply, motivating a child to perform, good responses, such as picking up their toys for something they want. It could be like a brand new Xbox game, or consider the different things a selfish child might be highly motivated might motivate them to respond. But here's the problem. Although you can get some great responses happening, doesn't mean, based again on this disconnected, superficial way in which you're engaging in a relationship problem, doesn't mean those responses represent that the relationship is actually getting better. Okay, you're just getting some good responses happening, but the child's attitude isn't changing. Okay, so understand this lines up almost exactly the same way when you consider dogs, moving around the training environment for treats and for certain things that they want. Even here's the depth of the problem. Even a expectation for something. It's like kind of like signing the contract. You do A, B, and C, you get D, and so you don't even have to have an overt motivating agent. And consider the dog's already has gained control in the relationship. So a certain expectation's already been set up, regardless. So even you talk about praise and petting and connecting that way, that becomes a motivator based on, again, control. Okay, and this is the problem. This is the attachment possessiveness issue. Okay, with dogs, and this becomes a tremendous problem when you approach training this way. Okay, in a superficial way. So here, okay, and again, so when you encounter a video like this, understand that you're not hearing any of that information. Okay, you're not, seeing things even in terms of just common sense. Like, why are you going to a trainer in the first place for help? It's because you're experiencing a relationship problem. Okay, but it's just like this very superficial imagery of this is the jumping in point. To get the treats out right away. Don't connect any dots. Let's just trust this superficial, picture within the framework of responses, and let's just go with that. Okay, let's not apply any critical thinking, none required. We don't have to consider, why it is that dogs can look fantastic moving around, doing a great sit down, come and stay, and you get your certificate, and then you're like, well, I don't understand why I went back home with my dog. I got my certificate, but nothing's changed. But think about what I'm saying. Okay, this is the problem in the dog training world. There's no critical thinking applied here because this has been set in motion years ago, and it's so appealing because it plays into people's emotions. Okay, so the people that are struggling the most with their dogs in terms of relationship problem, those are the individuals that have more of an emotional connection. Right? So they're going to gravitate towards this type of idea of things, using treats, petting on the dog, because it feels great. Right? It's like, wow, this is great. I get to, engage this way. But consider the parent example. Okay, it might feel great too, because you say, well, my role as a parent, I don't have to confront, or I don't have to challenge, or I don't mean anything to do with abuse either. I understand there's so much misinformation out there in the dog training world. And so what happens here is trainers will, misrepresent, okay, what control and influence, what they represent to a process that's defined properly. Okay, they'll even certain reactions and responses of dogs, they'll take completely out of context to further their own agenda. Okay, and that's what's happening too. There's so much exploitation, and then they don't want to talk about, and they don't want to deal with. They don't want to even respond to all the inherent problems with all the failure, all the blame shifting on the dogs being medicated. They will just try to excuse it all away, because here's the problem. At the level that it's at, when you have this many trainers doing this, okay, approaching a relationship problem this way, it seems normal, right? It seems like, okay, well, there must be something wrong with these dogs that end up, still struggling in the relationship. It couldn't possibly be the fact that these trainers are not even considering what a process even represents. Okay, those two core ingredients I talk about, the influence and control, they're missing. Okay, they're not brought into the equation. So again, I want to play just some of this, but the big takeaway here, okay, is the starting point, is the jumping in point. And pay attention to the word. I'm going to stop this really fast as I play this. The word that is brought into this. Okay, I'm going to stop. You can hear a certain word brought in here. The majority of trainers will bring this word in, and just like Sesame Street, it doesn't belong. One of these things doesn't belong. Well, it's this word. Pay attention as I play this.
Hi everyone, this video is on getting started using food to lure behaviors with your...
There it is. Okay, that fast, like 3 seconds in. To lure behaviors. That word behavior does not belong, okay, within the, within this narrative based on what these responses represent. They're just superficial responses. Think about the selfish child that you're bribing, okay, because understand the dots aren't being connected. You're getting the child to respond, okay, you're motivating a response in the middle of a relationship problem, and then you bring that word in. Oh, the behaviors are changing. Well, that is trying to suggest that good things or certain things are happening that aren't. Okay, that word behavior is totally being hijacked. Okay, it's brought in. It doesn't belong. These are just responses. And here's the thing. What's the criteria? Because this question is up on my Facebook page at the very top. You go check it out. It's a question, but it's a statement of, I call it the statement of the century. Question of the century. Okay, this goes right to the heart of the matter. And it is, what is the criteria that trainers like Kiko Pup and all these other trainers out there, balance trainers, forestry trainers, what's the criteria they're using to establish that the perception of dogs are changing the right way towards the owner within the framework of responses? Like, what is it? Like, how are they establishing that perceptions are changing? Well, they're not, okay? There is no criteria there because the very criteria I talk about, influence and control, is not part of this process, the way that I define it. So it's all assumption based. It's totally inherently flawed. So you ever wonder why dogs are moving around and looking great and great things aren't actually happening? Well, there it is, okay? That's why when you get a dog on the leash and you start to, bring influence and control into the equation, in a way, again, things have to line up. I talk about, the language of the method, okay, intent. There's certain things I talk about that need to be part of, a process that's defined properly, okay? I'm talking about a intentional interaction-based method that's going to reveal and change, okay? It's going to give you the right information and change. This is not that, okay? I just want to be clear. So that word behavior brought in 3 seconds in. There it is. Doesn't belong, okay? Because there's nothing to establish that beyond just superficial responses that, behavior. See, and the dog training world is so twisted up in this stuff. So certain language and terms are they might sound great, but they don't actually connect properly, okay, based on what is happening.
Your dog. I suggest making sure the treats are the appropriate size. You don't want to be breaking up treats as you're training because your dog's going to be doing.
So here's the, don't use treats, okay? Don't use motivating. You're wasting your time. I mean, I go help dog owners all the time, and don't get me wrong, I feel really bad for people because this is what is popular. Okay, you go to almost any trainer out there, this is how they jump into a relationship problem. It's the relationship's the motivator. It has to align to the social aspect of the connection. Okay, it's different that way. Okay, intent. Okay, influence and control. You have to turn into a type of power play right away, but it's a type of power play that's not meant to generate high challenge or be over the top, even though you have to, again, when you deal with dogs that are aggressive, though, you have to be more intentional with really kind of slowing it down, okay? There's accommodation, okay? Understand there's some variance when you're doing it. So if you need help with your dog, contact me. Don't just start to, jump into it without seeking professional help. And when I say seeking professional help, there's not any trainers I know out there that this is a original source complete system. Okay, developed it. Okay, if you go to other trainers that have like interaction, somewhat power playing interaction, but be very careful because some of that stuff, some of the method doesn't line up anyway. So all to say here, you don't use treats. Okay, this is the thing. I understand this is so easy for people to do, and trainers have made their entire reputations and careers off of this. And they're doing a tremendous disservice to dogs and owners, and in terms of what I'm talking about, in terms of a better relationship, setting people up to be deceived. It happens all the time. I've written books on this. You can go on my website, put lots of information about this. I line it all up.
Weird behavior or getting frustrated while you're training, and that's going to get all mixed up in the training picture. So get the appropriate size treats for your.
All mixed up. Well, this is mixed up. So all to say, okay, right from the get-go, you don't have to. That's why I don't have to go far into any of the stuff. I don't have to play the whole. Well, it's only 4 minutes, superficial anyway. But you don't have to go far in. It's just like this is the starting point. This is approaching a relationship problem as a learning-based exercise and engaging this way using motivators, using treats to motivate a response. That's the wrong way to do it, period. Any trainer out there that does this, steer clear. Don't do it. Because again, when you end up with a bad counterfeit picture, guess what? Oh, there must be something wrong with the dog. It happens all the time. Dogs getting blamed. You're going to end up with lack of results. because their entire focus is superficially focused. It lacks depth. The criteria I talk about influence and control, it's missing. Those pieces are missing because the only way for them to be reconciled properly is through a intentional interaction-based method. That's it. Okay. So again, thanks for watching. Check out my website. Lots of great information. Take care.